a platform like Endeavor gives the rest of us, the rest of the 99%, the opportunity to have access to these particular endeavors. That's why I called it endeavors, because they are endeavors. And to have the ability to collect that yield, to ability to have ownership of these assets in a fractional way. That's why blockchain is so perfect for this, because it gives you all the tooling to create that type of access in a manageable, responsible, viable way.
Can you talk a little bit about what Endeavor is and how that crowdfunding is going to kind of work?
Yeah, I mean, essentially, that's what Charles just described, and this is a way to give access, democratize these operations, and access that the average person did not have before. I mean, before you would have, if you wanted to be a part of a lithium operation, you have to be in the right place at the right time with the right amount of money, and it was only available to a select few. And so a platform like Endeavor, which is a crucial part of the Palmyra ecosystem, because it's all a cycle, right? So to produce a commodity, you have to create business, you have to open up a region for that commodity. That's where the Palm DAO comes in. And that's where you get that's the Catalyst style DAO, where you submit proposals to do business development, decentralized business development. That's what one of the big pillars of the Palmyra, of the Palm economy is. Another big pillar is a way for you to go from that part where you opened up the jurisdiction, but now you would like to actually build a commodity bearing operation. Now, how do you go about that in the legacy way? Well, legacy way, you have to go to some big bank, or you have to go to somebody who's got a bunch of money. In somewhere like United States or the UK or the EU, there are already established ways of doing that. If you're in a place like even Argentina, it's still gray. It's still the average person does not have that type of access. And so what happens is, again, the haves, as Charles said, the haves have pretty much all the opportunity, and everybody else just gets to, maybe if they're lucky enough, pick up some crumbs. And that's not sustainable, because that once again introduces that single attack vector. Because what if, okay, right now they are a kind ruler, but what if they become a tyrannical ruler? And just decide, okay, you guys go poor now. You guys go die now. That has happened before in history, and that will happen again in history, as long as there are these centralized points of access and these huge gates that are kept by these these centralized entities. Now, a platform like Endeavor fixes that. A platform like Endeavor gives the rest of us, the rest of the 99%, the opportunity to have access to these particular endeavors. That's why I called it endeavors, because they are endeavors. And to have the ability to collect that yield, to ability to have ownership of these assets in a fractional way. That's why blockchain is so perfect for this, because it gives you all the tooling to create that type of access in a manageable, responsible, viable way, which now creates a larger market of access for the average person. They have exposure to these assets. They have a way to build, to participate in these things, and they have a way to generate wealth for themselves like they haven't before. And as a commodity producer, you have a way to spin up an operation without having to sell your soul to some guy who buys all the olive oil in your province. And it's not just in Greece, I mean, Georgia is the same way. I mean, Georgia, we were talking about, this is back way back before anybody even cared about NFTs and tokenization. We were out in Georgia back in, I think, 2018, 2019 ish. We're talking about potentially tokenizing wine and access to wine. And the reason being is because, again, Georgian wine had a really, the average winery owner had only got a fraction of the actual money or revenue generated from the wine sale, because there was only something like 2 processing plants that were available to process these wines. Because it doesn't matter how good of a wine you made, you could have your own winery, right? And you have limited amount of bottles, and then you create a business around it. Like some of them created chateau resorts where people go there and they'll have wine, and so you generate some income for that. But you don't have this major big league access. You don't have global access. Global access is restricted by these guys, because they're the ones that control access to those markets, and they're the ones you sell them, you sell it to them for $1 a bottle. They'll charge $20 a bottle for it, and they'll get it because that's really what the market price is. But you can't get $20 a bottle because they cut off your access. Well, that's where Palmyra comes in, and that's more specifically that there's the same thing when you tokenize the actual operation that produces it, because now you don't have to be tied up by these guys that the only guys that'll give you money for it, because nobody else has the ability to. Now you go out there, you present your case to the community like you do with things like Catalyst or things like the Cardano governance. You present your case to the community, and the community decides what happens. And that's what a free market is supposed to be like. And that's what we believe in, and that's why platforms like Endeavor are so important, because they give access to that free market. They give access to those people that deserve the opportunity to have that access and not be kept away from it by a middleman that serves no other function besides just being a middleman.
Yeah, and that kind of reminds me a lot of like a Kickstarter, right? And one of the things you used to do back in the day, Charles, was, and I don't remember the name of the platform, but you used to go on the end of every one of your live streams and do a loan.
Yeah,
And
yeah, Kiva. That we
yeah,
literally built that company. Remember when I was doing those loans, I said, "Hey, we're going to do that." That's what RealFi is.
yeah,
And over time, it'll be able to get to retail, and it'll, for regulatory reasons, take a few years to eventually get there, unfortunately, but we will, and it'll be running completely on crypto rails. But it's the exact point. You want a situation where people who have capital have new ways to deploy that capital, and if they can deploy it in a way that's fair to the bottom 3 billion, not only can they get a better return, it actually massively improves the lives of the bottom 3 billion, because that fragmentation basically creates cartels that charge 85% or 150%. So you instead would pay 15 or 30%, much better for them, much better return for me, translates to billions of dollars of capital flooding into the developing world.